Anyways, long overdue. Welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast, everybody. Yeah, I know Robert took a while to get to that. So yeah, today on this episode, we're talking about how to avoid ad fatigue. Ad fatigue is something that I don't think we've ever talked about ad fatigue before.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to, whether it's a banner ad, Google ad, social media ad, TV, radio, commercial, you can't leave them running because people get tired of seeing them.
Unless it's one they really, really like. There, I'm going to throw a curveball out there.
Right. Well, there's ones that seasonally run that everybody looks forward to, like the bells with, the Hershey Kisses. Everybody's like, oh.
Yeah, holiday ads tend to repeat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But imagine running that all year round. That's almost like some, I was going to say, I'll just say it. That's almost like North Korea torture. Like you're in the basement. Kim Jong-un's like, watch this ad. And you're just, for 6 months. You come out hating chocolate and anything silver.
As an aside, don't forget to introduce the team. For the
oh,
podcast.
right. Yes. So, yeah. After 106 episodes, if you've been faithfully watching the show, thank you. You know who all these people are. This one's new. But yes, we have Mitch, who's the creative director of NerdBrand. We have Michaela, who's an account associate. And we have Jonathan Payne, who is the director of accounts and also the chief experience officer of the podcast. So that's everybody. Did I do it right?
Well done.
Thank you.
Done did it.
Yeah.
You got a Hershey Kiss.
Box checked.
Yeah, box checked. All right. Well, without managing the ads, the message, it gets ignored. That's part of it. I think most people think, well, what do you all think when you think and hear ad management? What it comes to your brains?
Well, I mean, for some reason, just because of the seat I occupy, ad management. I immediately think of somebody, basically sitting behind a desk looking at a piece of software and plugging in dates and ads and times and the different mediums, whether it's social, web, print, whatever.
That's part of it. That's a big part of it, I think. That's the day-to-day.
Yeah.
I think the other part is ad management involves what's the sequence of stories that you're going to tell. How do you move people from A to Z and get them to take the action that you want. And it's not A to Z. It's actually like A to F, and then it jumps back to B, and then it's like D.
I was getting ready to say, I was like, yeah, I can tell where you're going to go.
It's not linear. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's often with everything nowadays. Everybody thinks it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's like, no, it's more like 1, 3, 4, 5, potato, jump, hula hoop, and it's just like, what? But yeah.
I think it's, managing is the act of trying to optimize the outcome.
Right.
And the way, in a digital world, we typically go very broad at first to see what comes back. It's data focused, not as much with radio or traditional mediums. It's getting there, but with digital, like Google Ads, the act of managing is literally optimizing and trying to figure out what data is coming back based on what you've put out there, and then how do you get more narrow over time to segment those different activities or different audiences that are responding to your ad, and then figuring out how to get the people who you want to respond but aren't currently responding, how to get them on board. So that is ad management on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I was talking with somebody about when we work with I had to use a client example because they wanted to know if we did any sort of like, how does strategy look like with us? What is that? I was like, well, for 2 years we did this, and then we moved to this. We didn't switch channels. We added a channel, and we kept doing it because I think people are still sometimes stuck in ads like what channel, and it's one channel, and it's been for over 10 years. Multi-channel marketing is what it's called. You're in more than one, and you have to be. You just have to strategically think about which ones work. So, if it's radio plus Facebook ads, you got to be in both, not just one. I think that's hard for people to wrap their head around that's necessary, and that's why it gets pretty expensive.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I mean, because for the longest time when I'll use social media as an example. When social marketing, social advertising hit, that became the magic bullet. I think part of that was because it was so readily accessible for
It was kind of a magic bullet for like 2 years.
Yeah.
legitimately. I mean, you could put a post out and reach 30,000 people easily without even putting money behind it, without trying. You know, that it was kind of a silver bullet for any small business for a while.
But since those platforms have all grown and evolved, and since the platforms themselves have
Squeezed.
well, and look for ways to monetize everything,
Right.
a way for them to make their cut off of everything. It's kind of become like every other medium. I mean, it's how much what kind of budget do you have? And in the big picture, it's always been, even before digital marketing and digital advertising, there's always been, you always want to kind of keep a mix in mind, a mixed mentality. You want to be wherever your audience is most available and most receptive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How long do y'all think, and I know there's really not a good answer for this, but how long do y'all think usually you need to make a change on your ads? When does fatigue start to typically set in? Let's say.
How big is a boat?
Yeah, yeah. But let's say you're selling boats. Let's say you sell boats. Like, when do you start to go like, yeah, I'm just tired of seeing that? When do you like 30 days, 60?
I mean, it's very, very much impossible to answer on that.
That's kind of the answer I was looking for. Yeah,
it depends on a lot of variables. I mean,
with digital, you can start to really tell, and I'm sure there are methods that maybe I'm not aware of with more traditional mediums or direct mail or TV or whatever. With digital, it's really quite easy to see when creative is starting to diminish. You're starting to get diminishing returns. Your click-through rates go down, your conversions go down, or your cost of advertising goes up. At that point, something's off. You got to start tweaking the list that we have here, the message, the platform, the creative. You got to start doing all those things.
Yeah. So the list that John was talking to is, number one is change your ad colors, but within brand standards. That would be one thing to do. Another one would be change your ad platform. So go from banner ads to video. That's another one. Change your message, this is one I thought was interesting, and I kind of put them together because to me imagery does convey a message. But change your message or your background image of the ads. Mm-hmm. And Mitch, you recently did this. You actually did this with our podcast, thumbnails and
podcast graphics. Yeah, I just updated them.
Yeah, and we've been running that update now for not very many episodes, so probably 30, 40 days. We'll see what was the impact on that. Mm-hmm. But we have to look at what was the impact on that on YouTube, what was the impact on that on this channel, like LinkedIn, wherever that's at. Not just I want the audience to understand it's not just like, oh, let's just look at YouTube then, mm-hmm. Just change that. Because we do probably need to execute a revision of not just because when you go through the search engine and you see a video result come up, it's an ad. It looks like a really nice free ad that you got for yourself, but it's an organic result. Change the image. We'll have to probably go through and revise the imagery on some of the ones that we've done and the titles as well, to kind of change up the results depending on what they're searching for. That's a project that is an internal project. Is it high on our list? No, but it's something that I know will trigger that change and we'll get that because it's kind of been the same for a bit, and so that's sort of what we're talking about with fatigue.
Yeah, there's that delicate balance. There's the you want people to recognize the ad. You want them to definitely recognize the brand, but you don't want them to feel like they've seen this before, especially in digital environments, because they'll breeze right past it because they've got 50 tabs open or whatever. It's a weird balance to figure out where that. I mean, it's been so long, but in the classroom years ago in the marketing class, they showed a graph. I mean, there is a concept in marketing with a kind of a flattening curve as the ad goes out into the real world. It kind of goes up and up and up, and then it flattens out at the top, and that's when you start to get your diminishing returns and fatigue. Where that is, there's not really nobody that. Most people don't have the budget to pay for the scientific answer to that,
right?
If there is one.
Yeah.
So it's a weird kind of arbitrary thing. You just got to be monitoring your metrics and.
I mean, it's almost common sense, in my view. But you don't do anything in your marketing and advertising just because purely for the idea you just want something new. If something's not working, you want to fix it. Mm-hmm. And there are conscious, concrete steps you take to fix it. Maybe it is adjusting the colors. Maybe it is adjusting photography. But message is first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And everything you do, once you determine what that message should be, is built around propelling that message. And you do that within the confines of your brand, whether it's the colors or the photography or music, if that's in the ad, whatever the case. You don't want to change anything just for the sake of changing it, because then you're just expending energy with probably very little return.
Well, and I think sometimes too is like there's this impatience of returns.
Oh, right.
You know, I've seen brands that we've provided standards for that are so far out of standard right now, but are still publishing content. And I'm like, you have to really do it for almost 6 months to a year, and maybe you feel like, well, I've not gotten any return on that, and I've done that. It's like because it still is not ingrained into people's brains yet.
Right.
we don't work.
That's the flip side. They haven't seen it frequently enough. They're not tired of it. It's not that it's ineffective. It's they haven't seen it enough, or they haven't seen it in more than one channel, which is what you were getting at. Mm-hmm. It's the same as seeing it enough in frequency.
It should always be a mix.
Right.
You never want to rely on one. I mean, I won't never say never.
Never.
But you probably never want to rely on one.
You're welcome.
Dang it, John. You really don't want to rely on one medium to carry your brand message, because people aren't only interacting with your brand in one medium. They're behind their computer, they're on their phone, they're on their television, they're in a magazine. Their time is very, and even more so now, your time is very fragmented. They're in a lot of different places during the course of a day. Mm-hmm. What are the places that are the most optimal for your message to be received? Because there's also an argument in being in too many places. Then people just there's a different kind of fatigue. I'm tired of you being in front of my face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happened with, there's an actress that, see, that's why. I know her last name is Fox. She was in Transformers.
Megan Fox?
Thank you, Megan Fox. There was, it was interesting, I bring her up because there was an interview that she did, and the people that she was working with, they just put her everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of really crashed her career for a bit because they did that. Because she would show up in magazine ads. She would show up in movies. She would show up cameos, just everywhere. People were just kind of tired of seeing her. And it kind of really hurt. And it's kind of why she disappeared for a while.
It's happening with you, I think, with Ryan Reynolds. You're seeing him too much.
Well, I mean,
frankly,
there's people that are arguing with me on that. There's people. I mean, I think maybe even you said if
where that line is for everybody. Like I said,
yeah.
It's very arbitrary and subjective.
But this and this goes back to something one of my axioms. Ad people are lousy focus group material. Of course, focus groups suck anyway, but I won't get into that. But
tell us how you really feel, Mitch.
But we're immersed in all this.
Right.
We're deep into it. We're paying attention to everything. Mm-hmm. So we're a lousy sounding board for the average Joe. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's part of our job is what does the average Joe or Jane care about? What resonates with them? That's our real job. And everything else we do is built around that. You know, talking about ad fatigue, it's an interesting dynamic to that. I think a way, and it's not new because it's happening with more and more brands. A brand will have more than one type of campaign going at the same time, and several different creative angles going at the same time. I mean, look at Progressive.
Yeah. Insurance does it a lot. Geico had 3 or 4 going into
right, and that's an interesting way to combat ad concept fatigue.
Yeah,
I think it's another question as to whether or not people become fatigued with just seeing your brand everywhere. But then there's also the other side of it is how many people can tell you which of those campaigns belong to Geico? They remember how many remember the ad alone versus who remembers who the ad was for.
Right.
That's something that's a kind of a tug of war in my mind that I've always kind of tried to grapple with. Are people remembering who it is, or are they just remembering the concept? Are they just remembering the lizard? Mm-hmm. So you've got to be careful. I mean, I'm all for trying new things, running multiple campaigns simultaneously, because you're competing with so much noise. That's probably
you're trying to figure out what's working,
right?
Especially when you get into digital, we're running. On Facebook, it's customary to run 30 to 60 creatives at the same time, and to swap them out like routinely, and that's how you get to the bottom of what's working and find the winners. we do the same, similar in Google Ads. Now, obviously, you can't run 30 creatives in TV unless you're, I don't know, Coca-Cola. But
Or,
Yeah, you got a big budget. Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that what determines what those campaigns are. I mean, there's so many other, audience age, audience demographics, targeting. Because you can because of the data you receive back, you can target so many different things more specifically when it comes to all those different demographic variables.
Yeah, I mean, I recently, since you bring up Ryan Reynolds, his wife just had a commercial that they put out. He put it out on his LinkedIn.
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, sort of not quite. Of course, they kind of has the same sense of humor as him. Otherwise, I mean, they're married. You would hope. Otherwise, what's that household going to be like?
She must be very patient.
She has to be. He's talked about that. He's talked about that before. He's like, shut up. But she has humor as well. But you can sort of tell the same kind of humor is being executed in that ad.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to talk about ads that we're tired of seeing, because I know we've all probably got a list maybe in our head, or I hope so.
Or hearing. Does anyone? There's a certain used car sales guy locally on the radio. I won't say his name.
I think I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess.
I don't want to badmouth people. But,
Yeah.
That's the point of. It was novel for a second, but 3 years later, stop screaming at us.
It's like Harry Carey with car sales.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. I always get annoyed with political ads. I've got a list of political ads.
Who doesn't?
Medical ads. Ads for apps such as dating and copywriting and just any kind of app. Wix or Monday ads. I'll call them out because we all have seen them. I mean, it's so pervasive. YouTube premium ads on YouTube. That's the one that really annoys me. Is I'm trying to watch a YouTube video and it wants me to subscribe to premium. And it's just like that whole banner just pops up, and it pops up in the wrong place too. It's like,
And all the time, no matter how many times you've declined the offer.
Yep.
yeah. So you kind of have to.
They want to wear you down.
Yeah. Well, that's a tactic.
It is a tactic.
It's finally like
Not a good
fine.
one, but it's a tactic.
Yeah. But yeah, there's commercials that I just recently subscribed to HBO Max, and so I've got the plan that has ads, and I do that because I want to see the ads, given what we do. And I've been pretty impressed. Maybe it's because I'm new to the platform, because I've never really subscribed. Well, I have subscribed in the past, but I think it was before they started doing this. I've been pretty impressed with like the variety. Like, I've not really seen the same ad. And I watch different genres of movies. I've been across horror, adventure, comedy. I mean, there's movies that on HBO Max. Not that this is an HBO Max commercial, but I'm catching up on movies that I just didn't get to see because they were in the theater, and at the time I didn't go. And then of course, COVID. So I'm like, oh, I can watch that now. And so that's what I'm doing. And sometimes the ad will play, and sometimes it won't. But I've not really seen a repeated ad where I'm like, God. Now, on other platforms, oh my God, I see the same ad all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, it just keeps replaying on loop. And I'm just like, what is going on? Did this platform just not? And we know that there has to be some sort of like, well, Jason, there's probably something you clicked on or looked at.
Some kind of algorithm at play.
You're in the market.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I'm not in the market for my pillow or anything like that, And I'm not saying that's what the ad was, but it's just like it was totally not. I'm not that. I don't want it. I don't care, And it's kind of come up, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, how much money did they waste just to kind of do what you just brought up that I'm getting to, is that tactic of like, well, buy, and you're just finally like, all right.
I don't know if any of you guys have noticed. I watch a lot of app-based television, like Tubi is one of them, and they have a tendency to run a lot of the same ads at each break,
Right.
and it's like, I kind of, why? I mean, is it because there's the first thing that comes to my mind is, do they just not have enough people coming in wanting to advertise on the platform that that's all they've got to run?
That really is a big part of it. They just don't have. They have way more inventory than people are buying right now. Because a lot of those videos, when you get into the more expensive types of advertising, that's typically what's happening. Is they don't have enough people who have the budgets to place that ad. That's why you see Tide everywhere. You see
VRBO.
Yeah, you see the same handful of companies on whether you're watching Roku streaming or Tubi or YouTube. It's because they've got the budgets. But a lot of people don't.
Yeah, Michaela, you see any ads that you're kind of like, I'm really tired?
One streaming service that I'm surprised has a lot of like redundant ads is Hulu. My roommate has the one with the ads. Because of the redundancy factor, I'm like, I'm just gonna pay an extra $2 so I don't have to deal with this headache. But
well, there it goes. The tactic worked.
Yeah, and what is it? IMBD. They also have a lot of the same ads. One though that I like how they have like a different combination or a tactic is TikTok, because they have ads, and like there's this weight loss book, and each time like I see it, there's always a different video each time, or like there's like this weighted hula hoop thing, and there's a different person each time, and like different statistics like and demographics. It's like an older woman who's struggled with weight loss and lost such and such pounds, and then it's someone more like my age who can use it more frequently too, and they lost such and such weight. So it gives you a variety.
Yeah, so you're seeing like the right way to do it.
TikTok is doing it the right way.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a platform that I'm seeing there's interest. I'll just say that.
But the cost, again, it kind of goes back to that. A lot of people can enter that space. That's why you don't see this quite as much, or you didn't used to on Facebook and Instagram. You used to get a very nice variety of ads, and you still do to a degree, but it's because it's significantly cheaper, obviously, than over the top or broadcast.
I've noticed and maybe it's just because of I don't know what's determining what I'm seeing completely, but like in Facebook, I'm seeing a lot of the same ads in Facebook. A lot.
Well, I think people are pulling their spends from there, so they're and they're focusing less of their efforts on the creative there. They're going more into
that whole thing
TikTok
with
space.
Facebook and its ad platform is ever since the whistleblowers and everything, everybody has less faith in placing anything on there now. So they feel that their ad visibility will be higher on other places.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned TikTok. I mean, I've noticed a lot. People are paying a lot of it in the conversations we're having with clients and potential clients. A lot of people are just paying attention, for better or worse or whatever. TikTok has everybody's attention.
2 times in the last week for me.
Yep.
I mean, 2 clients coming to the table saying, "Well, what do you think?" I don't know.
Yeah,
What do you think?
Yeah, I've been asked that before, and I told them that we've done. It's probably, I guess, maybe the first time I've said this recorded anywhere, but we have done TikTok ads before. But it's not turning on the video and doing something. I mean, that's just not. That's not what we did. It was very strategic and planned. There was video shot, edited for it, specific ratio because of the aspect ratio on the screen and all. But it's not something you just go out and do and execute unless maybe that's your brand. Maybe that's what you do. I mean, I know people that do TikTok videos and they're like little quick tutorial. Like, I've thought about doing them.
Yeah.
As I'm going out, walking, exercising, and kind of like, but I have this self-conscious thing about walking around with one of those selfie sticks and other people looking at me and then worrying about what other people think. I know that's kind of weird coming from me saying that, because you're like, really, you worry about what other people think? But I thought about doing that and being like, hey, there's this da-da-da-da-da later, and then that's it. But then there's a lot of work in thinking about what you're going to do to go do that. And then it's always the execution and then the distribution that's where my brain is like, yeah, I can make a bunch of stuff, but one, does anybody care?
Yeah.
Would anybody care? And then do I have the time to actually brainstorm and think about it on top of the podcast, on top of what I'm already doing? This is our content anchor. Like, do I really need to do another shiny object catchy thing that's kind of going on?
That's what I asked the client. I was like, it could work. It could definitely work. It's not a bad place to be. What does it look like 6 months from now? Because they're in a different city, so we're not going to be there very often. It's going to be on them to kind of spearhead the content and have somebody internally to keep capturing things, interesting things, coming up with ideas. Obviously, we can help to a degree, but what is that presence in that social channel or in that advertising channel? What does it look like in 6 months? Are you really committed? Because you can't just pop in and out. You can't.
Right.
it looks.
You got to be consistent.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's why we have a TikTok for NerdBrand. We don't do anything on it because we don't really have the commitment. Like you just highlighted an excellent point. There has to be the commitment. There has to be a theme. Can't just be random crap.
There's got to be a strategy.
Yeah.
And resources to execute it. I mean, that's the other thing. All social is challenging from that perspective, but you get into a video-centric platform like YouTube or TikTok, you're talking either supreme production costs or production time. And like you said, even just the average Joe. I mean, it's impressive the people who do build those massive followings and do it consistently, and it's the stream of ideas that is impressive. Yeah. Not even so much the execution of it. It's how do you have that many ideas for catchy content?
Right.
Yeah. Do y'all frequent TikTok videos? Do you guys go on there? Michaela's like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. She's probably like, I need therapy. It's at an unhealthy level.
Well, it is my therapy.
Oh, is it?
There's a lot of therapists on there who give good information too.
Yeah, and it's a good variety of different organizations too, and different pitches. And honestly, that's the last thing I have on my phone whenever I go to bed. I listen to ASMR on there, and it knocks me out, and I sleep kind of like a baby. Depends if my insomnia is around, lingering.
Yeah, right.
Huh. Well, we all learned something today about Michaela.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. I'm a Redditor. So
I used to be. TikTok kind of stole my attention, and I've never really been one to sit down and just like watch TV for hours or binge watch a show a whole lot. But I mean, TikTok, you kind of get in and you get your feel, and then you get out. Yeah. So I like that.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I'm probably of the generation where I'm like, if I open up TikTok, I'm like, well, somebody in China's watching this right now with me. I just don't see them. I just have that in the back of my head, which I don't need to not worry about that because they've probably already had that for a while anyway. But because when I go onto Reddit, I'm always in incognito. I always switch it to anonymous or whatever because I'm one of those people. I just don't want you to look. I use DuckDuckGo for God's sake on my phone. So if you're like, what is that? That's a privacy browser. So anyways, maybe we'll do a podcast on that in the future. Because that's starting to pick up. Firefox is a good one too, by the way. Not that I'm paranoid. It's just I'm just saying.
There's nothing wrong with having ownership of your data.
Exactly. That's why I do that. And TikTok is one of those platforms where I'm like, I don't really know if I do or not yet.
It's kind of creepy though, because the algorithms of it's so in sync with your interests, and you're like, how did they know? Like you'll say something 20 minutes ago, and then before you know it, it's something pertinent to what you said. And it's just, I'm like, how do they know?
Yeah, because obviously the TikTok branded account, I'd give John's got keys to it as well, and I thought, well, no, I need to make my own if I want to start doing stuff like that, for my own personal interest. Because honestly, I'd be on the paranormal ones because I'm like, it's funny to watch some of those sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, yeah, you guys saw that on The Conjuring. Next. Okay, that was CGI. Okay, that's just a cloud. So
there's a real vampire.
That's a piece of dust floating in front of a lens.
Yeah. It's like there's always these home phone ringers, the ringer things, oh, there's a ghost, and I'm like, nope, that's a gnat. It's dark out. But yeah, I because I don't want the branded account to start recommending crap, and John gets on there and is like, what is with all the ghost stuff? What's going on?
They really screwed up here.
Yeah. So I try to separate and not use the certain platforms and look for certain things, which is it's another reason why I do the privacy. Is I don't like the tracking because immediately when you go onto a website, there's probably 5 or 6 trackers of cookies that immediately get dumped onto your website or onto your browser. On your browser. And when you go to the next website, there's hundreds more that get dumped onto it. And so it just kind of keeps building and going, and they're tracking every site you look at. And I know this is taking a veer, but it's really bad right now, which is why Google probably will kill the cookie very soon. They've talked about it for a long time. But ads run on cookies, though. That's what is... See, I dovetailed it. See, I did that. And the ads run on that, so I'm very curious to see how, to a degree, how ads will respond to because I know they've got browser ID. You can log into your browser and use it if you're on Chrome. Like
Google's got their own little proprietary thing going on.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, they'll never tell you how they do it, but they'll keep doing it without cookies because there's programmatic advertising that can be done without cookie tracking. Mm-hmm. So they'll figure it out, but you still have to figure out, like, okay, there's enough of this. And I want to end this with a quote. Mitch, you said it, and it was something you said in a podcast where you were kind of like, it kind of just flew out your mouth. It was one of those things, you know?
As often happens.
Yeah, and stuff that flies out of my mouth, John goes like, "Oh God," but Mitch says it, and then you're kind of like, "Oh, that's very insightful." There's the contrast. But you said there are things about the ad that make it good, not the ad itself that is good. It was something in that vein.
Something like that.
Yeah, because there's ads that are good, but there's something about that ad that makes it good.
Yeah, there are particular things about the ad that make it memorable, that make it effective, that make it stick. And I always fall back on the basics. I mean, you want to talk to the right people at the right time about the right thing. There's timing is everything. I mean, that's kind of the big picture thing about advertising. It's a lot of it is about timing. At what point do you get in front of that person in a way that prompts a desire for what you're offering? So you can never underestimate the value of timing. I mean, that's why you see certain ads around certain holidays or different times of year. I mean, it's sort of commonsensical and like duh, but I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean,
that's the first time Mitch has ever done a duh. I really.
Hopefully, it doesn't happen again.
I prefer doy.
Yeah, I'm not going to forget that now.
There's also a reason why companies are why you're seeing so many the same ads over and over, or from the same companies, because they're trying to hit you. They don't know when you're going to be going to the grocery store. They might have a guess.
Right.
They know that they would need to run food, restaurants need to run food commercials around dinner time and lunchtime and whatever.
Well, hopefully everybody that's listening kind of understands, like, this is why paid advertising and management, like, why it's so expensive. Aside from the spend, you're paying somebody that thinks along these lines.
The value.
Yeah, there's value here, especially now. I mean, everybody's behavior has changed. Their behaviors of when they shop, when they watch things, when they do things. COVID really has upended all of our buying behaviors and entertainment behavior. And so when advertisers are trying to reach those people, like you just said, they really don't know now when you're there. There's still this every 3 months or so, it's like something else. And now it's like every month, and now it's almost like every week. And it's like, geez, man. So advertisers are constantly learning and new stuff. Like, John, I know that you've got a history in, copywriting and social media, and you've said, now you're like, it's always something new to learn. And it's all, and it's hard. It's impossible to keep up. And this morning you slacked me a message. You're like, it really takes a village.
It does. It does. It's like raising a kid. Raising a brand you've got to have tons of different minds and different mindsets and different skills. And you got to have the budget to bring those skills to the table. And that's where I think a lot of people, especially today, are getting hung up.
Yeah,
they're not familiar with the cost. I know we sat with somebody the other day where, they were kind of lamenting, or I don't want to say complaining about it, because they were just being honest, but they're concerned about the cost that they were paying their current vendor, and I'm kind of sitting there like, you're actually getting undercharged. Unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you really want this to work and you want to accomplish your business goals, you're not going to be able to spend that much and do it.
Right.
So I think there's just some of that's just unfamiliarity with the territory. The other part is we're not immune. Our costs are not immune from what's happening. And what's happening is everything's more expensive.
Right.
Well, that means our team, we as owners need more money to exist.
Yeah.
So our costs go up as well. And so there's a myriad of factors that are going into people's decisions and how they're responding to advertising and what advertisers are placing. Mystery.
Yeah. We're going to go through, I think, for the next, and we'll try to for the next few weeks. Of course, this all depends. Again, like what we just said, everything changes so often, so the podcast topics may shift around. But we're going to go through Mitch's axioms. I know that you're just still excited to hear that.
It'll be fun.
But yeah.
I got a million of them.
Yeah. I think there's about 10 that we've done that are on a slideshow. I sent them to you. They're misnumbered. They're not misnumbered because all the numbers are made up anyway.
That's right.
It's kind of like Hong Kong Phooey. I don't know if you remember that cartoon.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So it's like, for those of you listening, you're like, what the heck is that? It's a dog that would run around literally in a kimono, and he had these rules in this book, and he'd be like number 1 and 2, number 1001. Anyways, look it up if you find it. But yeah, there's a couple duplicates, and so it's just kind of, just 47 to 48. Nobody's going to care.
Well, I didn't ascribe real numbers to them because there's always new ones coming up. So it's like, it doesn't matter what number.
Yeah, it's kind of like points. It doesn't matter and all that. It's like, whose line is it? Like, no, the points don't matter. But there are some things in there that you address and have addressed over the years. I think it'd be nice to kind of bring back and talk about, because they are coming up again as everybody's starting to poke their head up out of, from the pandemic and from everything going on. And they're like, okay, what's out there? What can we think about? Because our agency exists. We're the extra brains in the room. You say often, you pay us for this, our minds, not our hands.
Everybody's got these, but not everybody has our.
Right. And so, and Michaela, I'll give you accolades. Like, I've been told that you were on a call and gave some ideas, and like, it was like really good input. Mm-hmm. So, and that's kind of what we're here for. It's what we want. Because nothing can happen in a vacuum and nothing can happen solo on your own. So, but anyways, I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in. You can find us everywhere on social media at NerdBrand Agency. You can go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast. And please go to visit us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, tell your friends.
Leave comments.
Yeah, nice ones. Nice ones. And
podcast ideas. If you've got something we haven't talked about that you'd like to hear us talk about, put it in the comments.
Yeah, I'm terrible at, hey, let's put a show out there and let's talk about this. And then, no, that never happened. It's because once the mics go off, I forgot.
We move on to other things that have to be done.
So. Right. So feel free to say that. It's like, hey, you talked about this thing once. Please, would you mind addressing that again? Happy to do it.
Yep.
But anyways, thank you for listening. And remember, keep your nerd brand strong.